Welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad, a podcast where a white privileged male, me, invites people to teach him as much as they can about the sensitive subjects that are prominent in today's society, such as racism, women's rights, addiction, and mental health. This podcast is for open-minded people who want the information that is out there but don't know where to look. My name is Chad Moores. Join me and let's learn and grow together. Hello and welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad. The podcast that we have this week is only going to be audio because the video did not get recorded, but that's okay. That means you can put down your phone, you can look away from your laptop and just enjoy listening to it. So just plug in those earbuds and follow along with us. It was such a fun interview, so I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hello and welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad. Today we are joined by ex-Facebooker, ex-rockstar, Mack Ortis. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Chad,
I did it right, yeah. He's here to talk.
Perfect.
Great. He's here to talk about the metaverse, the Facebook metaverse, and the music industry. Please welcome Mack. Here we are.
Yeah. Thanks for that tee up, Chad. Yeah. So just kind of like diving a little bit right in, but the metaverse, it's kind of like coming at us fast. Mark's talking a lot about it. It's pretty fascinating stuff to kind of see it from the ground level. Like all of us are seeing this grow at an infinitely fast rate, and it's happening in our lifetime. But what does it mean? A lot of people have like really weird thoughts about it or just strange like opinions about it. And I think one of the things a lot of people miss is just the origin of it. Have you heard anything about the metaverse at all? Like what do you know?
So about a month or two ago, I saw that Facebook was kind of advertising for it. I think I might have even seen something talked about on TikTok, I believe. I saw that there's like a VR thing going on. They're trying to create kind of like, have you ever seen Ready Player One or read the books? I love the books. I don't know.
I love the books.
They're so good.
Books
I mean, the second
one,
one,
the movies.
Yeah. Oh, I know. The movie is like it's kind of trash. I mean, it was fun, but it was kind of trash to me.
It was a good romp, and yeah. Like if you wanted to get involved into Ready Player One, like that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's actually a great like thought around Ready Player One around the metaverse. If you just have no idea at all and you're just trying to get like a little bit plugged in on it all. But the idea is actually a little bit broader than that. A lot of people think that it's just a game system or a massive multiplayer online system like World of Warcraft or Second Life, and it's just kind of expanded with its own microeconomy. It's a little bit broader than that. The original term that we use, the metaverse, actually comes from some cyberpunk books. That describe this like universe that is blended between digital and real. So it's like a universe that exists in the digital, but also in the physical.
Okay.
And so, yeah. Sorry, you have thoughts, questions? Yeah. So many questions.
It sounds really cool. I mean, I remember seeing on the video like people sitting around like a table, like virtually, like sitting around a table.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they were working and stuff like that, and they had their avatars and all that kind of stuff. And
interacting,
yeah, and the cool thing that I always thought about with the metaverse was that Facebook is relatively free, so it does seem like So it does seem like it would be a very cool thing. That is one thing that I will say is that VR has been around for what, 8 years now.
Our lifetimes,
yeah. It's been around for a while, and I remember when I was a kid, I went to Disney. They had the arcade thing, and they had some VR games there.
Exactly.
This was like 15 years ago, and it was actually pretty good. I played a Star Wars VR game. It was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, I do remember the Star Wars VR games.
Yeah.
They were super fun.
Yeah, and then my friend Brendan got the Vive. Got the Vive, and that was like the first real cool VR system that you could have at home. I mean, it took up the whole space. It had all the cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I was actually a Oculus Kickstarter backer back when before Facebook acquired them. Way back in the day, and I still got my old dev kit. The technology has come a long way from there, and the Vive does an amazing job. Not to like toot their horn too much, but HTC did a really amazing job at showing us what a high end level VR headset would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people will stop at just the VR component and say like, well, that's the metaverse. Me putting on an Oculus headset, me putting on an HTC and interacting with people digitally, that's it. It's actually a little bit bigger than that. It's this idea that I, on my Oculus in VR, are interacting with you on your phone in Messenger in real life.
Yeah.
So like we're having a video call, and instead of you seeing this video of me, instead I see a video of you because you're on a computer,
Mm-hmm.
but you would see my avatar then.
That's really neat. Yeah, and
Yeah,
so I know that we're in Facebook rooms right now, Messenger rooms.
Yes.
Right now, and so that's relatively new. That's relatively new, and I haven't really seen much of else going on. But I've heard about, as I said, I've heard about the metaverse, and I know that it's slowly kind of creeping in. What's the next steps for metaverse right now? What are we going to see in the next? I don't know, timetable wise, like the year or two, or what it's going to be.
Yeah. So I think it's a twofold process. On the one hand, we're going to see a meteoric rise, continual rise in AR like investments. So augmented reality, or this new term you may be hearing, MR, mixed reality. That's another big buzzword that people are starting to drop. It's a lot of the stuff that Microsoft HoloLens actually pioneered. This idea of being able to place digital objects in your physical reality. Facebook's running toward that. So
with
is
the
Microsoft,
glasses,
so
right?
HTC.
With those glasses that so you can look through. Yep. And I heard about that too. Actually, not that long ago, I heard that they have these like all of the major tech companies are working on them. On them. So.
It's working on some concept of this mixed reality metaverse, to use the term that everyone like is starting to use. So Microsoft is handling it from a pure AR functionality, where it's like you got a piece of glass in front of you that has a image projected on it. It has like creatures projected on it, whatever animation you want projected on it, but you can still see the room around you. What Oculus is working on, if you've seen like the release about the new Pro glasses, it's they're more of a VR lens that has cameras that see your like house. So like
okay. So you're not actually you're seeing what's in the glasses,
what's being
projected,
but it's
projecting,
yeah.
And they have that in the Vive. Sci-fi. You can get a little picture of what's going on around you, just in case someone is trying to scare the crap out of you, which happens all the time in VR.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, so Oculus, the Quest 2 at the time, or Meta Quest now is what they're calling it, but the Meta Quest 2 unlocked something called pass-through mode in black and white, which was the ability to tap on your headset on the side for it to shift to this black and white kind of external view, so you could like interact and see what was around you. Great pioneering work, very low latency, which is kind of the key in this situation, so you don't get nauseated. Mm-hmm. But what they're talking about now is, well, what if we had color pass-through? Which, to the HoloLens point, is starting to itch toward that mixed reality world.
So tell me, as we're talking about this now, where does this come to? What is the purpose, I guess, of mentioning this on my podcast specifically? Where does that kind of tie in with this?
Yeah, well, I think so. As an ex-Facebooker, I still actually believe in the company mission statement of connecting people and connecting the world. Mm-hmm. I still think that's the goal for a lot of Facebook employees at the end of the day. It's not run by a bunch of crazy, evil people. As sometimes I hear the news, and sometimes I go, maybe I just don't know them well enough. But from everyone I have met in leadership positions, they're pretty genuine in a lot of ways, and so. What matters for you and your podcast is what Facebook is trying to do is give a voice to everyone. There's some inherent issues with that when you give a voice to everyone, you give a mic to everyone. But they believe that we're better together than separate. And so that's what all this like pioneering technology in the metaverse really is about, is letting people express themselves how they want to be expressed in the visual aspect that they wish to be expressed in.
I mean,
so that they can interact with everyone.
And that's very cool. I mean, I can kind of see that with this whole movement of the pronouns going on, and everybody
Exactly.
really showing where they're how they want to be defined, how they want to be seen.
Yeah.
And I never even really thought of that. And so, I mean, and that's just going back to kind of Ready Player One, where people are exactly being able to express themselves, not so much the way that they looked like when they were born and how they were growing up, but how they would like
how
to
they
be
choose.
seen.
There's a lot of agency, player agency in this, or like user agency in this situation. And then like beyond that, because Facebook's experience on the social side, just like seeing like content moderation and that kind of stuff, they understand the necessity for safety first. And so there are a lot of like really cool like VR safety features that exist in the Quest. Not to make this an entire Quest video, but they're like safety features that allow you to like interact with people in the method that you wish to be interacted with, like muting people, blocking people, like all that stuff exists. Like the ability to like surround yourself in like a cone of silence. We like that, using that a lot, because if you're in like a open chat room social environment and something's happening or you're feeling a little overwhelmed, like it's very easy to just hit one button and just kind of like take a step back. And I think that's really important that we're keeping that at the forefront.
So with that all happening, one of the things that I have been very interested in, I've been doing a lot of shows in different communities in the different places that I've lived, and there are a lot of young people that I'm doing this with now. I can't call myself young anymore. I'm 33 and
I can't either.
Right. And I remember when Facebook first came out, I was like 17 years old and everybody was like, "Oh, we're done with MySpace. Now it's time to go to Facebook." And you had to be, for the first couple of years, you had to be young in order to use it. And then the older crew kind of came in. Now my whole family uses it, which I ended up loving, because you could share the pictures with your family and all that kind of stuff. And now that I'm doing these shows, again, like a few years ago, you would use Facebook. You would make a Facebook group for the theater, and that's how you would communicate with everybody instead of like an email chain or something like that. And now the younger people aren't using it. They're using Instagram, they're using TikTok. Does Facebook, I'm guessing that the metaverse is their way of trying to get back up to where they are. What does that look like?
It's you're close. It's beyond. Yeah, it's beyond. Yeah, it's totally beyond getting back to where they are. If you were to just say like where Facebook is trying to get back to where they are, it would be more like the Instagram Reels functionality, or like any of those kind of ephemeral like messages, or short form like full 916 like video content, full screen. That's really more of the like itch that TikTok scratches in a lot of ways, especially also on the shopping component. Like shopping online is kind of like a new thing that everyone's tapping into right now. But what Facebook's doing with the metaverse is actually what we call in the industry like a hard pivot.
So we're kind of going away from I mean,
mobile computing. Yeah.
So Facebook is going to still be there, of course, but it looks like that's going to be almost phased out. Is going to be phased out?
It's just
almost
going to be part of. It's just going to be part of it.
It's just not going to be the concentration.
Yeah. So so think of this as like a fundamental shift in the platform. Very much akin to the company's shift from desktop to mobile. If you remember, back in like 2012, 2013, like a lot of us in the United States still didn't have like high speed mobile internet, or we didn't use apps as much as we do nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so back then, Facebook actually went through a really hard pivot away from desktop into mobile, because they saw mobile as the new area that everyone was going to be playing in. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, we got to get ahead of this curve. This is a similar like shift to the metaverse. It's like it's not where we're at right now, but in 5 years, it will be where we are right now. And we need to build the infrastructure and systems in place to make sure that it is safe and like functional and productive at the same time.
And you think they're going to be successful in this? Do you think it's going to?
I think they have enough money to make it successful.
I hope I hope they do. I hope they do. I mean, somebody will make it. I mean, there is Apple, and
that's the key. That's exactly the key that you're getting at. Is someone is going to make it.
Right.
Like the metaverse is an idea. It's not a product, and it's becoming a reality. Will Facebook be the big dog? I have no idea. Are they trying to be? Oh God, yes they are. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's very cool. So were you working on any of this when you were working on Facebook?
Yeah. When I was at Facebook, I was leading like partnerships on the ad side between the two largest tech companies, Apple and Google, and that was a lot of fun. But I didn't work directly on the Reality Labs portion of everything. I did a lot of communication around AR with those two companies and kind of like aligning where our functionalities were. But I did not actually touch the FRL side of the equation from a development standpoint. It's actually why I feel pretty comfortable talking about this stuff, because it's as a Facebook employee without any extreme proprietary knowledge. But I can give you a really good glimpse into where we're going based on the people that I do know that are in the, in the pilot seat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm ready.
Oh. Yeah.
You were like, there you go.
Let me drink.
Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause. So I did mention before that AR is one huge part of it. Like, we're gonna have AR mixed reality. That's gonna be a thing. But the other part of it is really centered around communication. Just communications technology as a whole. One of the things that I think is a little bit more interesting that they're working on rolling out. Have you ever messed with Apple's spatial audio feature?
I mean, I have almost everything I have is Apple. Everything except for computers. I don't like their computers, but I love everything. I have everything else that is Apple. So, but I guess I haven't really used it too much. No.
Yeah. So the AirPods have this like audio functionality which lets it kind of pinpoint your audio and place it physically in your world. And it was the idea that it can track your head and a whole bunch of other stuff. Facebook's working on what's called beamforming communications technology. It's this idea that when I'm in a VR or mixed reality conversation, it will make it feel more tangible if I'm able to place that voice physically in my object. And so the world that they're envisioning is this world where take the headset off, no headset. Me and you are in a club or at a bar, and it's really loud. It's kind of hard to hear. We each have like headphone peripherals in of some kind. Either that's AR glasses like Ray-Ban Stories or something like that, or it's just like an AirPod. We hop on a Messenger Rooms call similar to this, and we're all just kind of audio chatting. What the system will do will noise cancel everything else in the entire bar. And all you hear is just my voice and your voice because we're here physically in the room. And our other friend calls in, and we're able to take their voice and place them into a chair so that I'm looking at you in one chair, and now I'm looking at my other friend digitally in a chair. And I can hear them as if they were right there. And as we evolve like into like avatar technology and stuff like that, I'll be able to physically see them holographically.
I can see this being such an amazing opportunity for major introverts.
Yes. No, yeah. I have a lot of friends that are major introverts, and this is one of the things that is exciting me about, like, it's not wrong to be introverted. Like, no, introverted is not a bad thing at all. Like, if anyone's listening and you're an introvert, it's not a problem. But what we need to do is start creating technology that allows people to socially interact on their timetable.
Right.
And that's what this lets them do.
Right. And there is like that whole issue that people always bring up during all of these kind of ideas, is that it's like, well, it's going to make people just stay home. And it's like, people are going to stay home regardless.
Some people are going to stay home.
So it's actually giving them a better opportunity to do what they're going to do regardless, but also have them be social. I have a best friend of mine who only comes out when I invite him to come out, and he has a great time and he can be very social, but he's a very introverted person. I know that he has the vibe, so when we're doing like Tabletop Simulator on Steam, he puts on the headset and he sits there and he plays with us, and for him, that's just a wonderful opportunity.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a wonderful opportunity for him to get that social aspect. I had another thing in my head. I can't remember what it was, but and I also have somebody who is transitioning right now, and I can
Yeah.
imagine them being able to use this and use it at Avatar to be who they want to be, because there's only so much you can do when you're transitioning to fully transition to what you're hoping to be, or you know what I mean. I'm not saying that politically
I
correct,
do
but
know exactly what you mean. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean on that side of it all. And I think another part of it that people like, I think it's a little more real, like tangible when you think about it. We've all had phone conversations where we've put a phone on speaker,
mm-hmm.
like in a public setting, and we're all huddled around the phone trying to hear the person communicate, and it's very difficult. That's kind of like the essence of this beamform technology, is to let's get rid of that. Like, what if we just get rid of that? Like, what if we make it a seamless, as if you were right here next to me, an ability to speak? Like, if we could accomplish that, then we've gotten rid of a barrier that prevents people from communicating, and that lines up with the mission statement of connecting people. And we're off to the races. We're supported.
Yeah, it's a really cool way. I mean, for Facebook specifically. I mean, they've always been about connecting people, and
Yep.
yeah, that they're, as you said, pivoting and bringing I'm very excited about it. And you're thinking
Yeah.
within like the next 5 years or so.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to wait that long.
No, I don't either. And so it's like, if you want to mess with this stuff now, like grab like a headset, a VR headset of some kind. There's some cheaper ones that exist. Start messing around with like that side of it all. If you don't have that and you just have a computer, there's still things that you can do. Like I would start playing around with AR filters in general. Snapchat has a great like AR tool camera suite. Some others have some really good AR camera suites as well. But that's like I guess a half step toward like a full mixed reality metaverse.
Can you imagine the amount of money that these companies would make if they had this happen and come out right when the pandemic had started?
Yeah,
It would have changed. It would
guard.
have changed everything if we had
Yeah,
made that happen 5 years in the future from where we are now. Because I mean, so much has changed, and so much.
yeah,
I mean, obviously the pandemic was terrible and so many people passed, but a lot of really interesting and great things happened. I had two best friends of mine that worked in an office. They had to commute. It would take them an hour to get there and an hour back, and both of their offices closed. Now they work from home, and they're saving at least 2 hours of commuting every single day. That accumulates. Can you imagine, all of that stuff? So there's so much going on after the pandemic.
exactly.
But can you imagine what we all would have done instead of being alone for especially those first 6 weeks when we're not even allowed to leave the house?
Yeah,
Can you imagine where we
yeah.
would be?
No, it's crazy, and just the amount of heartache saved, because like I've been seeing more and more posts from like psychologists in the field discussing what this isolation for this long has done to us, like psychologically and like from a trauma level. Just how it's affected us as we're all relearning how to socially interact with one another.
Yeah, well, and it did get people to literally kind of sit with themselves and be like, okay, these are the
Yeah,
issues I'm having, and then going out and actually getting, or not really going out, but like I have a therapist of my own, and he would never. I would drive an hour to see him every week or two when I would go see him, because he didn't want to do virtual, but then we didn't have a choice. And so for the first year of the pandemic, we would do that. And now it's great because now I live even further away from him, but now I'm able to continue to see
yeah,
him when I need
yeah. But
to. So
it's this idea of like, can we remove the communication barriers to entry between people?
mhm.
Because if we can do that, like then we can really connect people, because we know that people get connected when they talk, when they have a conversation with one another. Ideas are shared. Even opposing ideas are shared. Like, people become less polarized when they get to have not just hear messages, not just hear ideas, but when they are able to actually have these one-on-one, two-on-one, three-on-one conversations.
Hmm.
What one of our senior leaders, Chris Cox, one of his things that he always said internally was, communication is the game. It's the name of the game. That's our job. Our job is communication. It's nothing else. It's how do we communicate with people.
Yeah. I mean, and so you're saying so Facebook has been working with Apple, because I can see Apple
Yeah.
really coming out as one of the top dogs for this whole kind of movement, for this whole new way of communicating with people. So Facebook is working with Apple, or what? How is that
Facebook,
working out?
Yeah. So Facebook does have partnerships that exist with Apple and Google, specifically from the hardware standpoint. They also have it in the safety aspect as well, where they'll share like what we call in the industry bad actors. You know, bad actors is kind of like the general term for people wanting to do malicious things.
So you
on your platform. Yeah.
Okay. So you find yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, so like for instance, Gmail or Google will share spam accounts that it gets flagged on its Gmail services over to Facebook to flag the like if you have a spam account and you're a bot like email account and you have a Facebook account, that's probably a bot Facebook account.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so they'll share that information. Apple does the same thing, where they'll share like email addresses or like PII. It's very rare PII. I don't think it's much actually, but it's specifically gated around safety. Apple's very sensitive compared to the two companies. Apple's probably a little bit more sensitive on PII than Google is, but Google's also pretty like buttoned up on PII, especially when it comes to their own personal like sales data and business data. So that was actually probably the most fascinating part of the job was like how do you like build ads that optimize? How do you figure out what's working and what's not when these giant companies don't actually like share data? Like if you had to ask me like, do they share data? I'd be like, not really. They kind of do, but it's like sharing data in the sense that it's very loose. It's a very loose shared data.
It's like it's kind of a truce. It's like we'll give you this if you give us that, but
yeah. It's this agreement that like if we share data around these specific fields,
right,
we're gonna make a better ecosystem as a whole. That's the pitch.
I mean, like, we give good on them. Yeah. Good on them for making that happen. It's funny. I had a client of mine who she had something going on with her Gmail account, and she said, "Can you help me with this?" And I'm like, I don't even remember what it was, but I remember I Googled Gmail support on Google on my phone, and the first phone number that came up on Google, and it looked very official, was a scam.
Ooh, yeah.
It's literally it's the first. Literally it was. I Googled it. It was on my phone, and it came up. It looked so professional. It was like Google support on Google. So I'm like, how could this be anything other than what it was? So it got me. I gave them.
Your personal information.
I didn't give them my personal information, but I allowed them to go onto this woman's computer, and then of course. I thought we had disconnected, but I got up, and when I came back, the guy was like looking through,
moving
things around, and I'm like, "Oh no!" I was like, "No!"
That's got to be it's definitely one of the most terrifying things to experience is these kind of digital scams, and I think that's a testament to how new this metaverse digital space is, and that's why it's so important that we're working on this 5 years plus in the future. Like these are the kind of safety measures that need to be built in. The AI technology that identifies bad actors needs to improve. We need better government support on like prosecuting these bad actors. Prosecuting scammers is probably one of the most difficult things I've heard from a government standpoint. Mm-hmm. Like it's really impossible to prove. It's very difficult to grab them, to actually like physically get them. And so
because they're usually from different. A lot of them are from different countries, so that really is Well, I remember when MySpace had first become a thing, every single day on the news they were talking about people catfishing like 13-year-old girls.
Scam. Well,
there was a lot of predators and stuff like that. My father would sit me down and go, Are you on that my place? Are you on my place? No. I'm like, it's called MySpace, Dad. It's MySpace. He goes, that my place. There are men looking to get you. I said, Dad, I'm I'm a fat 16-year-old male. They don't want me. They're looking for something completely different. But then I remember when MySpace and Facebook first came out, he would go, "You still using that face space?"
The face space? I like that. Face space is pretty good.
You using that Insta Twitter? Snapagram?
Oh, man. Snapagram's also pretty good. I've heard Insta Twitter before, but Snapagram's a good one.
He would always put them together because he didn't really know. So that was always really funny.
Well, you know, as we journey into this metaverse, those lines could get more and more blurred. So
yeah,
between platforms, like I wouldn't be surprised if in the future it becomes a little bit more connected. Like the connective tissue of all these different apps will start existing. The final little piece about the metaverse is that it's going to pass through like multiple countries, like spheres of, or multiple companies' spheres of influence. Mm-hmm. Like the idea is that like if you like, it's similar to this whole bad actors thing on Google, Apple, Facebook, where they're sharing this very limited information about bad actors. It's like, what if you could share your ad preferences across every single like platform channel that you're ever on, and so like you never get crappy ads, the ones that like are really annoying or scams and stuff like that, things that you've already axed out.
The ones that you talked about like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I do get those. I'm like, oh man, we could really use a new. There's like this really cool fire pit that it's weird. It's weird. There's this really cool smokeless fire pit that we saw at my friend's house, and I was like, oh my god, I want that so bad. And then the next day, it kept showing up on my Facebook. I'm like,
yeah, I heard a rumor that so I know I worked a little bit on targeting at Facebook, and when I worked on targeting, the surprise is that like I'm actually surprised that our interest targeting was even as effective as it was, because what went into that was essentially like clicks. That's actually all that went into that targeting. Was there was no audio recording, nothing like that, no predictive analytics really. It was just a lot of computer thinking around what someone is clicking on, and that was it. One of the big stories that we talked about like at the book was this CEO like called in and was like, hey, I'm really mad about your ads platform because it's showing my daughter like a whole bunch of pregnancy stuff. She's 15. Like, how dare you like show like her like this like, you know, getting ready for having kids, like pregnancy test like ads, breastfeeding ads, like, you know, the whole like maternity ad suite. Well, like a couple weeks pass, and my buddy gets a message from the CEO, like a huge like email apology, pretty much saying like, sorry, I didn't know what I didn't know, because his teenage daughter actually did come and tell him that she was pregnant. So the algorithm knew based on her clicks, kind of like she was pregnant before it was confirmed, just because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at huge swaths of data from people all over, and we're like, well, you're similar in your actions to a person who's pregnant, and so you're probably like there's a statistical significant chance that you're pregnant. Is it right all the time? No, it's pretty darn good, and that's all off of clicks.
I do have one other question, and this is kind of it's more of a personal question, but I do want to ask this, and then I want to move on to our next subject. So I use Facebook a lot more than my wife does. I scroll through it, I don't know, every day and stuff like that. But my wife uses
guilty pleasures.
Yeah, I watch the videos. I watch like the little like 5 dirty secrets of a celebrity, you know, like those kind of things. But then I also watch the what if videos. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Like,
oh, I love those.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love I watch those all the time. It's like a little 10-minute documentaries. Like, what if the sun exploded? This is what would happen to you. You know, those are. Yeah. I love those.
It's like therapeutic.
So I watch those videos, and when my wife watches a video on her Facebook, she gets like little, it interrupts her for like a 30-second. I don't get those.
Like
why do some
break?
People? Yeah, she gets like a little commercial. I don't get those. I've never gotten a commercial. I've never had anything interrupt my video. To
even the same video. So you're watching, like, you'll check out the same video, she'll send it to you, and you won't get an ad, right?
I don't get an ad. I've
Yep.
never gotten an ad on Facebook while I'm watching a video. My wife gets them all the time. What's the difference between my wife and myself?
Your Facebook and her Facebook? Yeah. Yeah, so as much as I'd like to say there's a premium option on Facebook, like Twitter's trying to roll out, where it's like an ad-free model, where you pay for a subscription, as far as I know, that's not the case. And from what I've heard, what Mark has shared previously, that will never be the case, because kind of the whole connecting world thing really exists in a free-to-play space. Like, that's makes sense. What it is more likely is you are a byproduct of A/B testing. And what it simply is that the algorithm randomly chose your wife. Well, actually, not randomly chose your wife. Randomly chose you to be part of the control group for an ad test.
I mean, it's nice. I hate getting those things. Yeah. Anytime she's like, let's watch this, I'm like, send it to me. We'll watch it on my phone, because I don't get those advertisements, but she gets them all the time. So it's
that simply means that, like, you're just in the control group, that you're just, like, not seeing ads, because they're running a, like, usability test on the background to see, like, well, if we add, currently our ad load is 4 ads per 6 hours, let's say. Like that, you get 4 ads in your feed every 6 hours. Well, what happens if we adjust that user feed to 5? And it's like those kind of questions. Like, does it mean that people are, like, never going to hit the 5th ad? Does everyone skip out? Does everyone, like, abandon? Does user, like, behavior drop? And so that's what they're trying to solve whenever you see these kind of, like, discrepancies between it all.
So I'd like to get back to. And then I want to move forward. How involved is or the metaverse? Excuse me, metaverse. Trying to be with all of these big movements with diversity and pronouns and stuff like that. Like, how is that coming into play with all of this going on? Because now that they have all of these virtual things coming on and all of that, like, obviously with having that, they're obviously going to be helping with that, because as we discussed earlier, somebody that is transitioning can use an avatar that makes them feel more comfortable in social situations and stuff like that. But what else is there? Are they working really diligently on there? Was this kind of a happy accident? Was it part of...
We'll never know. We'll never know if it was a happy accident or not. That's the fact, is we're just never going to really know behind the scenes. Like, maybe it was partially a happy accident, maybe it was intentional, but what it did do was it uncovered the need to have DEI. Now it's a term that everyone uses: diversity, equity, and inclusion. That idea, it showed that we needed to focus on that. Like, companies needed to focus on that. One of the things that, like, one of the stories that our head of DEI over at Facebook used to tell us was, she's from a Caribbean island, and she would ask us all, like, all these new hires in the room, she would be like, so, why do you think I lived on a Caribbean island, but I never swam in the ocean? I've never swum in the ocean ever. And she tells us the story about this one time where, like, she asked that, and someone, this is going to be so controversial and I love it. So someone stood up in this, a whole bunch of new hires, 200 people, brand new Facebookers. This one guy stands up and goes, very calm. He's like, well, from what I understand, people of African American descent have a higher bone density, and therefore they actually struggle with swimming. And so, of course, that's why you didn't swim. Which the entire room went aghast. I know you're making that face. The entire room went aghast because everyone went, "Oh my!" Like, that's probably the most racist thing I think I've ever heard. Like, and you're gonna be my coworker. And
did he last long? Did he?
He was actually, so Maxine handled this in the best way that I think anyone could possibly have handled this.
Okay.
She took a step back. Mentally, she tells us this at the other new hire orientation. She goes, mentally, I just took a step back and realized that this guy, like, because he was very nice, very calm,
it was ignorance. It wasn't malicious.
He was exactly. She was
Which is
like,
the
he's
difference.
not mean about it. He's just been given bad information.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. And the room was silent. Like, like it was about 10 minutes before he even gave that answer, because everyone was like, I have no idea why you didn't swim. And so he just was literally trying to help move the conversation along. And so she needed to correct him. They laughed about it. It was a good laugh afterwards.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, and good on. It
doesn't always happen like that.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, and good on them for handling it the way that they did, because obviously in this period of as I call it, overcorrection, and we're supposed to be overcorrecting. We're supposed to be correcting people on all of these different things. This is what I want to be called. You can't just assume all that kind of stuff. But there's also a way of being like, being ignorant is not a bad thing. It shouldn't be a negative thing. Is a thing. It sounds like a bad word, but it really isn't. You're ignorant. So let me. That's the purpose of like this podcast, of course, is that it's just like, hey, we
would be I was gonna say we would be better off if all of us just decided to admit what we don't know. It's like, it's okay to not know everything. It's okay. Like the problem arises when, and I'm not a social scientist at all, but the problem really arises when we start thinking and start saying things as if we did know everything. Mm-hmm. That's like when we start getting scared on admitting what we don't know. That's when we start making a lot of big mistakes.
Yeah. So the last. Sorry.
No. So wrapping up this conversation with Maxine, the true answer for all of you that are tuning in on why she didn't swim was because she has frizzy hair. As you know, like a lot of people in the Caribbean islands, they have frizzy hair. Salt water and frizzy hair just does not mix.
Yeah.
And later on, Pantene actually released a frizzy formula for people with frizzy hair, and she told all of us, she was like, I'd like to believe that the reason why they released that product was not because of any like nefarious reason at all or anything like that, was simply because of diversity. Simply because someone got hired in Pantene that had frizzy hair. And then because they had frizzy hair, they could then tell everyone in leadership, we're missing an entire market segment, because at the top, at leadership, what they care about is making money. Like,
right.
Frizzy hair, not frizzy hair, they don't care. And so they were like, well, we're all, she said, they were all, white old guys with either balding or thinning straight hair. They're not thinking of frizzy hair at all. Of course not. And so what it really takes is, her whole message is, we are stronger with more diversity than we are without. More diversity will always make you a stronger organization, because it will show you what the real world actually is like versus what you perceive as the real world.
Right.
There's the answer. I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. So the other question I had for this, and then I really do want to move forward, but I keep thinking of all these other really cool questions.
It's fine. We'll have to do another one of these.
I know, exactly. Yeah. You're welcome back anytime. This is going very well. I'm very much enjoying myself. For the older people doing this movement of the metaverse, I can just see my father being like, I'm not putting that thing on my face. I'm just...
Yeah.
I put my dad in a VR headset once, and I mean, it was like...
What was that like?
I had to... It was in a PSVR, and so I used a game where it was like going through like... oh gosh, it was called Astrobots. Have you ever played Astrobots?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it was one of the sky ones, and so I kind of moved it around, and he was like, oh, this is like, he loved it. But then you also see those videos where you see people, they're rock climbing on the thing, and then all of a sudden they miss a thing, so they fall, and then they physically,
tip over. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize, specifically within VR, how immersive it is, and how malleable our brains are in a lot of ways. Like, it doesn't take long for your brain to kind of like just be like, I guess this is reality now. Yeah, like your brain just like turns off for a second, and like it's like, oh, okay, I guess this is what reality is like.
This is where I am. And you take the weirdest thing is when I'll be using my VR headset, and I'll be in there for like a couple hours or something, and then I'll take it off, and I'm like, the sun is gone. When did that? It's like nighttime.
When did that occur?
Well, I'm in my living room? I wasn't just in my living room. I was just Batman. Like 2 seconds ago, I was just Batman throwing
exactly.
things and stuff like that, and now I'm just Chad again. This is the weirdest thing. But do you think that it's going to be harder, or do you think it's going to be more user friendly for the older generation to be like? So, for instance, if you're a 60-year-old who's still very much in it working, not retired or anything like that, you're 60 somewhat or 70 somewhat years old, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, everybody's working from home, so now we're giving you these headsets to work in a virtual office. It's like, I don't know if I can do that. How is that gonna affect the older generation?
So just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off, I think what we're seeing is another, again, a shift in consumer behavior. It's very similar to how like in video games, for instance, how younger generations play a different series of video games than older generations do. Like my dad played Super Mario Brothers with me growing up, and then I tried to have him play a first-person shooter, and he was just like, "There's too many controls going on. Mm-hmm. There's too many buttons going on. There's way too much happening on the screen, and like it's overwhelming." And therefore, my endurance, my capability of playing a first-person shooter without being nauseated was just significantly higher than my father. Similarly, with VR technology, like we're seeing kids that are capable of being in VR spaces for multiple hours without being nauseated, where I have friends in their 30s that they'll put it on for an hour and they're like, it doesn't matter how good the latency is, it gets nauseating.
I had a friend of mine who literally had to just collapse on the floor, because what were we playing? We were playing the Vader Immortal games.
Oh, I love that one.
They're so good. And I had him come over. I was like, "You gotta try this." And he tried, and the moving thing. He was just like, "I can't do this." And I have another friend of mine who's around the same age as myself, and he could only do it for. I could stay in there as long as I want, and I'm fine.
Yeah,
but some people can only
I'm getting pretty good at it now.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue at all. Even the first time I put it on, I remember I did as I said, I did the Vive with my friend, and I got on Google Earth, and I just flew around the Earth.
I've spent hours in VR.
Oh my god!
I'm with you.
I can just do it. But I know a lot of people, they can only be in there for like a minute or two, and then they're just like, "I can't do this." It's just screwing up their minds. It's crazy.
Yeah, my wife struggles as well. Like, so I'll play a lot of VR MMO games, but she'll be able to do maybe like 30-minute spurts tops. Mm-hmm. If it's lightweight, maybe 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so that's like first thing to realize is that there's a generational shift there. That's just how technology works. Like in general, like newer generations are more capable of and more malleable in that way that they're able to adapt to new environments. Mm-hmm. And so that's like really at play. That's also why this whole metaverse concept is so important, because historically, when you would have like this kind of technological jump, there was no way to communicate back. Like there's no way to have someone who doesn't play a first-person shooter join you for the experience of a first-person shooter if that makes them nauseous. Like that doesn't exist. But this whole metaverse is this idea that, well, what if you could bring them along for the journey in whatever capacity they can come? And so you'll see situations where, like I do a lot of internal casting with my Oculus, where I throw what I'm seeing onto a TV screen, and that allows like everyone else in the house to kind of interact. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then on the chat side, it would be similar to like what we talked about earlier, where it's like you're not seeing me, you're seeing an avatar of me because I'm wearing a headset, but you're not, and it's fine. We can still communicate. Mm-hmm. And so what you'll probably see is multiple what they call entry points into the metaverse. So you'll have a VR entry point, obviously, that's a Oculus headset. You'll probably have an MR entry point in glasses format. Either it's a kind of like a projected, like holo projection, HoloLens, like glass, or something like the Oculus where it's like you see the camera shows you what's around you, but it's still like a mixed reality environment. Mm-hmm. That's like one step. You'll have an ability to enter the metaverse from a mobile standpoint. That'll exist. And you'll also have it from a desktop standpoint. Like they'll kind of like all exist holistically. That's how you tackle this generational issue where older generations aren't able to use like the latest technology because it's nauseating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, when the computers first started to become more like everybody had them at home, really the only thing that my family needed to do was just learn how to do an email and learn how to use the internet and browse, you know. And then I think it kind of cut off once Facebook came out. I think that was once Facebook came out, then it was like, okay, now anything and everything else that kind of comes after Facebook, for my parents' generation at least, that's where it cut off. That's where it's like, okay, they don't get any they don't get any more technology. Well, they get nothing more. Well, no, they get like FaceTime. That was actually like probably the last thing, is that like FaceTime came out and they were like, okay, no more learning for us. We get no new features. The generations before that, we still get all the new features and stuff like that, but I'm not excited for when I get older, where I get my last piece of technology. Scary. Oh man, that's gonna be so upsetting. I'm not looking
forward to it at all.
I know, I'm gonna see all these kids doing all these things, and I'm not gonna be able to use it because I'm just too old. Yeah. So that's very scary.
I'm not looking forward to that part of the world when it's like it's beyond what I'm even comfortable using.
It's crazy to think about, like, my grandparents couldn't use a VHS.
Oh, that's
like my grandparents were like, "How do you rewind this? Where's the pencil so you can put it in?" You know. So I mean, that is.
I think the one interesting thing though that VR is doing different is we have a lot more technology, and what I'm gonna say is like ease of use technology that exists now that didn't exist before. Imagine if your grandparents, when they were dealing with the VHS, could have asked an AI assistant to walk them through a step-by-step and educate them.
God, yeah, but at the same time,
that's
have
probably
you
a horrible idea because they probably would have
older people
Alexa.
try to use AI? I remember when Siri first came out, my mother-in-law, this is literally what she goes. She goes, "Siri, I need to get a haircut." You know, and then she couldn't.
Yeah.
And she goes,
it won't do it.
"Siri, I need to go somewhere to get my hair. On the top of my head is hair. I need somebody with scissors to go and cut them." You know, you thought that AI was going to help, but she goes down. She'll be downstairs with the Apple television, and she'll be like, "Put on the animated film Frozen, made by Disney." You know, like my father's the same way. He goes,
it can be painful sometimes.
Oh my gosh. My father does it too. He'll go, "Siri, how are you today?" You know, he'll have a full-blown conversation thinking that, you know, he has to have the conversation before he can ask what he needs. Yeah. You know,
to be fair, I also have full conversations with my like AI bots, but for me, it's a little bit more dark. It's simply because I'm looking forward to the Rise of the Machines from Terminator, and this way I've guaranteed that the AI know that I love them and respect them, and they won't kill me because I go thank you Siri every single time.
Oh yeah,
thank you Alexa. So you're so sweet.
I use the male version of Siri, and I take out the I, and I call him sir.
Ooh, okay.
You're welcome.
I like that.
You're welcome.
That's pretty
You're
good.
welcome to all my viewers. Yeah.
Apple, you should run with that.
Just call him sir instead of Siri. Yeah. I love that. When they came out with the male verse, I was like, oh man, I'm calling him sir. Thank you, sir.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh man.
Yeah. So,
but that's kind of like where the metaverse is going. You got to kind of like think it's a lot broader than a lot of people realize. It's this seamless integration between the physical and the digital. That's what we're trying to hit.
I have been so scared that I remember when PSVR came out, I went and I got it. Well, my parents got it for me. And I love it. I love using the PSVR and I love playing all these games, but we're not doing a lot with VR. Like right now, I mean, publicly, we're not doing a lot with VR. There's not much going on. There's like not a full, like you go and you can buy like a VR game for like $10-20 because get a full-fledged VR game because people aren't putting. It takes a lot to make them, and
Yep.
people aren't buying VR headsets right now. People aren't buying them.
Yeah, right now it's kind of a little slump because
I'm
I
very
think
scared. It's like Blu-rays came out and everybody was gonna we thought Blu-rays were gonna take over, but then right after Blu-ray, digital came out and it went away. I'm very nervous. I was very nervous that VR was not going to become a thing. Like it was going to be a fad, like 3D movies, same thing. Like it's going to be a fad for like 2 seconds.
Flash in the pan, and then it's gone.
But it sounds like from what you're saying that it's not going to be all for video games, so it will become an everyday item.
Yeah, I think specifically if you zoom a little bit, so taking the metaverse concept aside, we now understand that the metaverse is bigger than just VR. We're going to zoom straight into VR. VR, like Quest, HTC. I think the Quest is actually pretty well suited, especially with Facebook right now. I'd be interested to see what Google pumps out and what Microsoft pumps out next. But it's the next level of personal computing. Like I've heard people use the term like it's VR computing, or headset computing. Mm-hmm. The idea is that you're gonna buy an Oculus or Meta Quest instead of like a tablet.
Yeah.
Like instead of going to get an iPad to do all your productivity, or a Surface Pro to do all your productivity suites, you're going to get a headset. It costs about the same, and it gives you a bigger screen because it's like glued to your face effectively.
I know.
And we can do all the productivity work that we normally would have done with a laptop, but on a VR headset. Mm-hmm. The term that they use, so I too was worried about the future of VR until we started rolling out, it's called a 2D computing apps is what we've called it, or what I heard them use it internally. But it's the idea of like, okay, forget everything we've been thinking about VR. We've been playing with this whole like 360 space, and a lot of people are like, well, like, what do you mean productivity, Mac? How would we use like Photoshop? Like, what does Photoshop look like in VR? I'm like, well, it looks a lot like how your Photoshop looks like on your computer, because what it is like just a giant flat screen in front of me that I can use my hands as mice or use my physical mouse, and I'm using this as a giant desktop screen in front of me. So that's 2D computing in VR.
Yeah.
Is this idea like we're just going to port this app to VR, so it's a VR immersive space, but it's still a flat screen, because that's how we know to use it.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I've sat on my PSVR and watched movies.
That's my dad loved watching movies. Back in the day, there was a system called the Oculus Go, which was their first attempt at kind of like a portable VR solution before the Quest came out. My dad loved it because you could put the video screen wherever you wanted, and he was like, "Why would I ever buy like a 70-inch screen? Like,
when you can
this is a 70-inch screen." Yeah. So I think there's a lot of appeal in that regards. I think VR is here to stay in a lot of ways. Because what we know of as VR has changed. Like that conversation has changed.
Cool. So I'm going to give you the floor on a little bit of the other thing that we wanted to talk about was, so you left Facebook. So you left Facebook to go back to your band. Now apparently you guys worked together, and now you're back together. Tell me a little bit about your band and another reason why we wanted to have that on this podcast specifically. Kind of rein us in on that. I would love to hear some of that.
Yeah. So before Facebook, I actually was the lead singer of a touring rock band in California. I did that for 4 years. It was a blast. Made a lot of good friends. Made a lot of just amazing, crazy stories that we'll have to talk about another time.
Right.
But in 2014, the record industry kind of tanked, and me and the bandmates kind of looked each other dead in the eye and said, "I don't want to live off cup of noodles the rest of my life." And we all went back to college. I subsequently got picked up by Facebook because I had experience in running Facebook ads from 2012. And they were just like, wow, yeah, we'll take you. That sounds great.
Awesome.
And then now that I've kind of done my stint, 7 years in tech is a really long time to be in tech. It's just it's a mind-boggling amount of time to be in tech. And so I told my manager, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of toasty. And he's also an artist as well. And so he was like, well, Mac, what's to say you can't just pick up the axe again? And I was like, you're kind of right. And, several other music artists started releasing some new content that was resonating with me. And I was like, let's give this a shot. Reconnected with my old guitarist, found out that when we split up, he actually also went into like marketing and advertising. So he was working in the similar industry as me, also getting burnt out. And we kind of just had a couple beers and reminisced and was like, how great would it be if we got back together? And he looked me in the eye and was like, let's do it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. And so what we did was we just applied a lot of our learning that we've learned in ad tech, in like business strategy and marketing strategy, and just applied it to like how we do things in the band. Like this is going to sound so weird, but like we have like a Kanban board for organization for our songs. So we know where in the songwriting process each song is. And so everyone kind of stay on top of it. It's interesting, and it's nice to be able to like talk and work with someone in music that understands all the business sides of it all and the art side of it all. Like it's kind of like a both.
It's so cool. Oh, you're gonna have to send me a little bit of the music because I haven't listened to it yet. You haven't sent. You said you were gonna send me stuff, and it's been a month, man.
It's been.
I'm just saying, it's been a month, and you're slacking. I know. You want people to listen to your music. You had somebody literally say, "Give me your music," and you were like, "I'm done. I'm out of here."
I know.
Just saying.
That's on me. It's like it's like you're not the only one. You're not the only one. My friend who's stepped into like a general management role for me on this, because that's kind of sometimes what you need someone to just kind of crack the whip on you. Mm-hmm. He's been on my tail about it. What I do have is, so we have 4 tracks that are in the works right now, and I'm polishing out the lyrics on all of them. I will send you one of them. There's not even a title for it, but it's this like it's a very nostalgic like grungy rock sound. We're kind of playing around with what would happen if we took modern tones and then applied like a nostalgic logic to it, I guess. But I'll send that over as soon as we're done with this, and you can give it a listen. And maybe next time we can talk more about it. But you could definitely feature this at the end.
Yes, no, that's wonderful. Yeah, if you're okay with me doing that, I will. I'll end the interview, have my little thing, and then I'll put the music on there. So if people want to listen to it, that would be great. And we'll put some information on how to get it. So you have any music like on Apple Music or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'll link that stuff into my bio. Yeah, I'll put that. Yeah.
That was honestly one of the reasons why we all were able to kind of like hang up our hats, was we felt like we did accomplish something. Like we released an EP, released an album. Mm-hmm. Right before the industry tanked, we had signed a record deal with an indie label. We were on the up and up, and then it collapsed, and we were just like, I'm tired. Like, forget this.
Yeah.
But we are on Spotify. You can find us on Spotify. It's Without Spaces is the band name.
Okay.
No space. There's no space.
Without
and spaces.
Okay. Without
spaces.
Spaces.
It's a little too cute, honestly, for 2020s, but like it was cute enough in 2011. So
yeah, okay. So I'll put some of that information and links and stuff like that onto the bio for this, onto the information.
And then if anyone wants to have these kind of conversations, if for instance you are an aspiring artist or you work in business or anything like that, I do consultative services on the side. A lot of people need help with their like not only just direct Facebook ad strategy, but like thinking a little bit bigger from a business dev side around just like how do we prepare ourselves for the coming metaverse. So if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm more than available to chat, and I think you have all that contact info as well, Chad.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So if you want to contact me, you can email me, and then I can get you his.
He'll put us in touch.
I'll give your address so people, and I'll get them free plane tickets to go to see you and just knock on your door. And you guys can stay there as long as you want. So if you don't have a place to stay, for free. So he'll make you breakfast, not lunch. You got to do that on your own, but you can come back and have some dinner. He loves family dinner.
I'll provide the raw ingredients so you can cook your lunch, but I'll do breakfast.
His breakfast,
I do a really good scramble.
Right. You know what? His breakfast is not so good because it's normally like corn puffs. which no one really likes corn puffs, or honeycomb cereal. It's not good.
I tried to make it really like, diverse and make sure that people of all dietary like restrictions could eat it. So we settled on rice.
We read it on right. Well, can we do dim sum? Can we do dim sum?
We could do dim sum.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, next time you're out here over in the Bay Area, Chad, we'll go grab some really good dim sum.
I need to go to dim sum. Like, I'm actually going in a couple of days with my cousin Brian. Cousin
amazing.
Brian will not go to dim sum without my wife or myself. Like, literally, like, he'll go and visit where there's a dim sum, like, really close to our family. So he'll go and visit, and he'll be like, Chad, are you coming while I'm here? And I'm like, no, I have work or whatever. And he'll go,
yeah,
but I want to go to dim sum. I'm like, dude, you can go by yourself. He's like, I'm not doing that. It's too overwhelming. He's gone so many times and he just refuses. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'm actually mixed. So I'm actually part Chinese.
Oh, okay.
And part white. And so when we talked about DEI, I actually was like participating in the DEI group at Facebook around mixed, and it was actually probably the most therapeutic thing I've ever experienced. Just
really?
Like a lot of people that are mixed, especially like Asian white, there's a lot of like identity issue, like just.
Oh, my wife talks about it quite often, and Erin Quill that I had a couple of weeks ago on, she's also half Asian, so apparently that's I'm just.
It's a thing. Like I think the big story that I tell people is growing up, like all of my Chinese friends, like it was never overt. It was never like mean, but it was like they would say things like, oh, like Mac, you're not Chinese, so you probably wouldn't understand this, even though I am half Chinese. And similarly, my white friends would not see the white part of me; they would only see the Chinese part, and they would just be like, "Oh,
it's difficult.
Like you just don't understand what it is, being white, Mac." And I'm like, "But I do." So wait, am I not white? Am I not Chinese? And it just leads, as a child, like it just leads to really confusing conversations where you're like,
"You're almost better. You would have been almost better just being full on Chinese." You know, and that sounds terrible for me to say, but it's the honest truth. I mean, my wife gets the same.
Like as a
my
child.
Wife gets the same thing. So,
and so that's why I'm really glad about this DE&I work that's happening and these groups that are cropping up that are supporting these people of various ethnic backgrounds, including mixed. I never knew. I always thought I was alone, or like maybe. Conceptually, I knew I wasn't alone, but I was like, well, I'm never going to meet anyone else. Like, it's fine. And now that I'm meeting more and more people that are mixed, we're having these similar conversations, similar stories, and it's a great support network, to be honest.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really, really neat. Well, is there anything else I wanted to ask you? Is there anything else you want to plug in? This was really fun.
This has been great. This has been super fun. I think I would love to hear people's feedback on these topics, and if they want to continue these conversations. And then maybe we can have me back on this as a guest, and we can kind of double click into some of the stuff.
Yes, of course. So if anybody has anything that they'd like to comment or anything that I said that you might want to correct me on, I'm totally here to grow. So like you can, any of my ignorant statements, you're more than welcome to email me and be like, no, that's not right.
Because I agree wholeheartedly.
I love those things.
Like a lot of this stuff is soft science. Is a lot of predictive stuff on where we're going in the industry. But you don't know what you don't know. And so I would love to kind of hear other people's opinions about it in general. Like what I can do is I can kind of give you a glimpse into what Facebookers thinking. Like how do Facebookers think?
Yeah, I'd love to hear. I definitely want to have you come back in, so that would be wonderful. So thank you so much for coming. This has just been great. So much fun. So much fun. And we'll see you again soon.
We'll see you all next time. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, we'll see all of you all next time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. everyone for tuning in and growing with me. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, even things you want to educate me on, please email me at roomtogrowwithchad@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you. See you when I see you.